My brothers and sisters, I came here today to tell somebody you are not lost. You're being rerouted. Oh, yes, God knows you need a new path. You've been sitting in the same place, walking the same road, crying over the same pain, circling the same mountain. But this is your season of shift. Hear me. God saw the crossroads before you got here. He knew when you reached this point you'd feel tired, confused, maybe even broken. But what you call a dead end, God calls a doorway. What you call rejection, He calls redirection. Stop asking why the old path closed. Stop mourning the road you thought you'd walk. If God shut the door, it's because He has something better, and He's trying to move you to it. Some of you are fighting so hard to stay in a season God already left. You're clinging to relationships, jobs, habits, or mindsets that no longer fit who you're becoming. But God is saying, I'm doing a new thing. I'm taking you a new way. Let me tell you, the new path may look unfamiliar, but it is tailor-made for your purpose. The detour is part of the design. The delay is part of the development. God is ordering your steps even when you don't understand the turns. So today, lift up your eyes, shake off the fear, lay down the old map. God knows you need a new path, and He's already paved the way. Trust Him. Step forward. Walk into your next. My dear friends, let me tell you something today that will shake the dust off your weary heart. Long before you arrived at the place you stand right now, long before you started to question whether you've lost your way, long before you even realized you were at a crossroads, God saw it coming. He saw the moment you would stand here, looking left, looking right, wondering which way to go, wondering why the path behind you has crumbled, wondering why the old road no longer seems open to you. God was already there. He saw the crossroads before you did. You see, we live our lives thinking we are moving step by step, day by day, making our own choices, carving out our future, and shaping our destiny by sheer will or effort. But the truth is, God has been orchestrating the journey all along. He's been ahead of you, not just beside you. He's been preparing the road before your feet ever touched it, designing a path you couldn't yet see, creating opportunities and connections and divine appointments that were set in motion long before you even dreamed your first dream. So when you come to a moment where you feel stuck, when the job dries up, when the relationship crumbles, when the door you were knocking on refuses to open, don't you dare think for a second that God is surprised. Don't you think He's wringing His hands or scrambling for a backup plan? God saw the shift coming. He saw when you would reach the limit of the old way, when you would outgrow the old season, when you would no longer be able to survive on what used to feed you. He knew when the old assignment would finish. And because God saw it coming, He also prepared a shift. That's right. He knows when you need a shift, even before you know you need it yourself. Sometimes we think we know what's best, and we fight so hard to hold on to the familiar, even when it's no longer fruitful. We cling to jobs that drain us, relationships that diminish us, environments that suffocate us. We say, but I've always been here. I've always done it this way. This is what I know. This is what I built. But God isn't bound by your history. He's not trapped by your comfort zone. And He's not about to let you sit in a dry place when He has rivers waiting to flow. So when you reach the crossroads, when you face the decision, when you feel the nudge in your spirit that says, it's time to move, it's time to change, it's time to shift, you need to understand that nudge didn't come from nowhere. That's God working. That's God signaling that He has already set the next part of your journey in place. Now, here's where it gets hard. We often resist the shift because we can't see where it's leading. We stand at the crossroads looking for a sign, looking for clarity, looking for a guarantee. We want God to show us the whole map, to lay out every step before we take the first one. But faith doesn't work like that. Faith means trusting the one who holds the map even when we can't see it. Faith means knowing that God has been faithful in every season before. And He will be faithful in this one too. Remember Abraham? God told him, I'll leave your country, your people, your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. God didn't give him a GPS. He didn't tell him exactly where he was going. He said, go, and I will show you as you walk. I will show you as you walk. That's the pattern of God. He reveals as we move, not as we stand still. And when we hesitate at the crossroads, when we stall out waiting for perfect clarity, we miss the invitation to step into the new thing God has prepared. And let me tell you, when God knows you need a shift, it's not just about geography or career or external circumstances. It's about something deeper. Sometimes the shift is inside you. Sometimes God knows you've been stuck in the same mindset for too long. You've been carrying the same old fears, the same old doubts, the same old insecurities. You've been thinking too small, believing too little, settling for too less. And God says, I'm about to stretch you. I'm about to grow you. I'm about to grow you. I'm about to expand your capacity. But growth requires movement. Growth requires surrender. Growth requires letting go of the old way so you can embrace the new. And that means you have to trust that God knows best. Trust that his timing is perfect. Trust that when he says move, it's because he's already prepared a place for you to land. You might be thinking, but why does it have to be so hard? Why can't God just leave me where I am? Why can't things stay the way they've always been? Always been? My friend, if you knew what God knows, you would understand why the shift is necessary. If you saw the traps ahead, if you saw the spiritual dryness coming, if you saw the shrinking of your own purpose, you would thank God for the disruption. You would praise him for the closed door. You would rejoice for the change you didn't want but desperately needed. Because here's the truth. God's goal is not to keep you comfortable. His goal is to fulfill his purpose in your life. And sometimes that means shaking you out of what's familiar so you can step into what's fruitful. Sometimes that means disrupting your plan so he can accomplish his. So today, I want to challenge you. If you find yourself at a crossroads, don't panic. Don't despair. Don't cling so tightly to what's passing away that you miss what's being birthed. Look up and remember that God is not surprised by where you are. He's not unprepared for what's next. He saw the crossroads before you arrived, and he knows when you need a shift. You don't have to figure it all out. You don't have to carry the weight of the unknown. You just have to trust the one who has already gone before you, the one who holds your future, the one who is more committed to your destiny than you are. He is calling you forward. He is leading you into a new season. Let go of the fear. Release the old path. Release the old path. Take his hand and walk boldly into the new way he has prepared. Because the God who sees the crossroads before you do is the God who knows exactly where you're going. And he will not let you miss your want. Let me speak to someone today who is standing in front of a closed door, wondering what went wrong. You've been knocking, pushing, praying, and crying, and yet the door in front of you remains firmly shut. Maybe it's the job you were sure you were going to get, the opportunity you were certain would be yours, the relationship you believed was meant to last, or the dream you had carried so long in your heart. But now you stand looking at that door, bewildered, frustrated, maybe even angry at God. You ask yourself, why didn't it open? Why didn't it work out? Did I fail? Did God forget me? Have I been rejected? Hear me today. Closed doors in your life are not signs of rejection. They are often signs of divine redirection. God is not in the business of carelessly shutting down your hopes or cruelly blocking your way. No, my friend, God's heart toward you is good. His plans for you are good. His purpose for you is sure. Sometimes he has to close the door you wanted so he can guide you to the one you were truly meant to walk through. When you face a closed door, it's easy to assume it means you've done something wrong. You start searching your heart, wondering if you missed the mark, wondering if you somehow messed up your destiny. But not every closed door is punishment. Not every no is about failure. Sometimes the no is protection. Sometimes the no is provision. Sometimes the no is preparation for a bigger yes. Think about it. How many times in your life have you wanted something so badly, only to look back years later and thank God you didn't get it? How many times have you prayed for something that, if God had said yes, would have pulled you away from his best? We don't always see it in the moment, but many of the things we call rejection are actually God's loving hand of redirection, steering us away from what would harm us or limit us, and guiding us toward what will grow us, stretch us, and fulfill the greater purpose he has for us. We serve a God who sees the end from the beginning. While we see only the immediate, he sees the eternal. While we focus on the surface, he looks at the deep. While we fix our eyes on the opportunity we want, he is looking at the character we need to develop, the timing that needs to align in the places we cannot yet imagine. So when he closes a door, it is not because he is against us, but because he is for us. I know it's painful. I know it's painful. I know it's confusing. I know that waiting on God can feel like wandering in the dark sometimes. You stand before that door. praying for it to open, pouring your energy and time into it, believing this is the way. And then when it shuts, you feel like the air has been knocked out of your lungs. Don't you realize that the same God who allows the door to close is the God who holds the key to every other door? The same God who says no is the God who says no is the God who knows where the yes is waiting. Sometimes the door you want to open would only lead you into a dead end. Sometimes it would chain you to a season you were meant to leave. Sometimes it would keep you in a place too small for the calling God has placed on your life. And sometimes, hear this, it's not even about you. It's not even about you. Sometimes the closed door has to do with what God is doing in someone else's life, what he is arranging behind the scenes, what he is orchestrating in the timing of heaven that you cannot yet see. When Jesus walked the earth, he faced closed doors too. When he went to his hometown of Nazareth, the Bible says he could not do many miracles there because of their unbelief. That was a closed door. When the rich young ruler walked away from Jesus, unwilling to surrender, that was a closed door. But did that stop Jesus? Did that cancel his mission? Did that strip away his purpose? No. He moved on because he understood that every closed door was simply pointing him toward the next assignment, the next town, the next life that was ready to receive. You and I have to learn to do the same. We must stop treating closed doors as the end of the story and start seeing them as divine signals that God is moving us forward. We need to stop sitting in front of doors that will never open again, mourning what we lost, obsessing over what went wrong, and blaming ourselves for things we were never meant to control. Instead, we must lift up our eyes and look around because God is opening another door somewhere else. And if we are too busy grieving the no, we might miss the yes. Think about Joseph, who was sold into slavery by his own brothers. That was a door closed to his childhood dreams. Then he was thrown into prison for a crime he didn't commit. Another door slammed shut. But none of those closed doors meant rejection. They were part of the divine redirection that positioned him for the palace, positioned him to save a nation, positioned him to fulfill the purpose God had placed on his life. Think about Ruth, whose husband died, leaving her with nothing. That closed door forced her to make a choice. Stay in Moab where nothing awaited her, or follow Naomi to Bethlehem where she would eventually meet Boaz and become part of the lineage of Jesus himself. That closed door was not the end. It was the beginning of something greater. So my friend, don't despise the closed doors. Don't let them define you. Don't let them convince you that God has forgotten you or cast you aside. He is the God of resurrection. He is the God of new beginnings. He is the God of new beginnings. He is the God who opens doors no man can shut and shuts doors no man can open. Trust that when he says no, it is not to harm you. It is to help you. When he says wait, it is not to punish you. It is to prepare you. When he says not here, not now, it is because he has a better here and a better now waiting down the road. You are not rejected. You are not forgotten. You are being redirected into the purpose and destiny God has ordained for you. Walk forward with confidence. Lift up your head. Let go of the door that is closed and start looking for the one God is about to open. Open. Because his plans are always for your good, his timing is always perfect, and his no is never the end. It is only the pathway to his greater yes. There comes a time in every life when you look around and realize that where you are no longer matches who you are. You feel the tension, the pulling inside, the quiet but steady discomfort that whispers to you in the night, reminding you that something has shifted. The road you've been walking, the familiar patterns, the familiar relationships, the old routines, the places where you once found belonging, they no longer feel like home. They no longer fit the person you are becoming. It can be unsettling, this realization. For so long, you were content to walk the same way, follow the same habits, surround yourself with the same people, pursue the same goals. And at that time, it was right. It was the path you needed. It was the road that grew you, shaped you, taught you, and maybe even protected you. But you are not who you were then. You've grown. You've been stretched. You've been transformed by the trials you endured, the lessons you learned, the prayers you cried out in the dark. God has been working on you, sometimes in ways you didn't even recognize. He's been softening some parts of you and strengthening others. He's been peeling back the old layers, the old insecurities, the old assumptions, the old limits. And now here you stand, feeling the undeniable truth that the old path just doesn't fit anymore. It's like a pair of shoes you've outgrown. Well, you could squeeze your foot in and try to make it work, but after a while, it starts to hurt. It limits your movement. It slows you down. And eventually you have to admit that what once carried you well can no longer carry you where you need to go. Not because it was bad, but because you have changed. You have outgrown that season. But here's the hard part. We often resist leaving the old path because it feels safe. It feels known, even if it no longer fits, even if it no longer feeds us, even if it no longer brings life. At least we understand it. There's a strange comfort in the familiar, even when it becomes a cage. You tell yourself, this is who I am. This is what I've always done. This is where I belong. But deep inside, you hear the still small voice saying, I'm calling you forward. I'm calling you higher. I'm calling you into something new. That's why this moment matters so much. Because God is not interested in keeping you stuck in a version of yourself that no longer serves His purpose. He is constantly shaping you into who He created you to be. And that means there will be seasons where He calls you to leave behind the old ways, the old mindsets, the old relationships, the old labels that no longer fit. Think about Abram. God told him to leave his country, his people, his father's household, and go to a land He would show him. Can you imagine the courage that took? Abram had to walk away from everything familiar, everything that had defined him, everything that had shaped his identity up until that point, because the person he was becoming could no longer fit inside the life he had known. God was making him Abraham, the father of nations, and that calling required a new path. Think about David. Before he was a king, he was a shepherd. The fields were his world. The sheep were his responsibility. The hills were his home. But when God called him to the palace, to leadership, to battle, he had to leave behind the simplicity of the shepherd's life. The old path had been good for a season, but it could not contain the king he was becoming. And it's the same for you. You may be feeling the discomfort right now because you're trying to live as the new person God has shaped you into while still walking the old roads. You're trying to carry a new anointing in an old environment. You're trying to apply new wisdom to old patterns. You're trying to live with expanded vision in spaces that can no longer hold your dreams. And the tension you feel is not because you're doing something wrong. It's because God is inviting you to step into the next chapter. But here's the challenge. To step into the new, you have to release the old big. You cannot walk a new path while clinging to the old one. You cannot carry the weight of who you were and the weight of who you are becoming at the same time. At some point, you have to make peace with the fact that certain things, certain people, certain opportunities were only meant for a season. They were never meant to go the whole distance with you. This is where faith comes in, because stepping off the old path doesn't always come with clear instructions. God doesn't always tell you exactly where you're going next. Sometimes He simply asks you to let go, to trust Him, to believe that He who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it. Leaving the old path is not betrayal. It's not failure. It's not abandoning your past. It's honoring the work God has done in you by saying, Lord, I'm ready for what's next. It's recognizing that you are not the same person you were last year, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and that's a good thing. Growth is the evidence of God's hand on your life, so don't be afraid of the new path. Don't mourn the old road so deeply that you miss the invitation God is placing before you. Yes, it will require courage. Yes, it will stretch your faith. Yes, it will test your willingness to trust. But on the other side of your obedience is a new level of purpose, a new depth of joy, a new measure of anointing, a new experience of God's faithfulness. You are not stuck. You are not lost. You are being prepared for the next season. And if you're feeling the squeeze of the old path, it's because God is enlarging you, making room for the person you're becoming. So lift your eyes, shake off the old limitations. Step into the new path God has set before you. The best is yet to come, and you are ready for it. There is something deep inside the human heart that craves the familiar. We long for the paths we've already walked, the places we know, the routines we've mastered, the roads we can predict. We like to know where we're going and how we'll get there. We like the security of being able to see what's ahead. And yet, if you walk with God long enough, you will come to understand this one truth. The unfamiliar path is often part of His design for your destiny. And God never promised to lead you only through places you understand. In fact, time and time again in Scripture, He leads His people down roads they never imagined, through wildernesses they never planned, into seasons they never anticipated. Why? Because His purpose is not to make you comfortable.
Yep.
His purpose is to make you complete, to shape you, to transform you, and to position you for the assignment He has placed on your life. The unfamiliar path stretches your faith. It calls you out of the shallow waters of self-reliance and invites you into the deep waters of trust. When you don't know where you're going, you are forced to fix your eyes on the one who does. When the road ahead is unclear, you learn to listen more closely to the voice of the shepherd. And in that stretching and that trusting, something inside you begins to grow. Something you never would have discovered if you had stayed on the well-worn, predictable road. Look at the life of Abraham. God told him to leave your country, your people, and your father's household and go to the land I will show you. God didn't hand Abraham a map. He didn't explain how long the journey would take. He didn't lay out every step. He simply said, go, and Abraham went. He stepped onto an unfamiliar path because he trusted the God who called him. And through that obedience, Abraham stepped into his destiny, the father of many nations, the father of faith. From the palace of Egypt to the wilderness of Midian, from shepherding sheep to leading an entire nation out of slavery, none of it was part of Moses' own plan. None of it made sense on paper, but it was part of God's design. God used the wilderness to shape Moses, to prepare him, to reveal his power through him. The unfamiliar road wasn't a detour, it was the pathway to destiny. And what about the disciples? When Jesus called them, He didn't give them a detailed job description or a 5-year plan. He simply said, follow me. They left their nets, their boats, their tax booths, their families, everything they knew, and followed Him down an unfamiliar path. Little did they know that path would take them through miracles and storms, through heartbreak and triumph, through betrayal and resurrection. The unfamiliar path was the road to their true purpose. We want clarity. We want certainty. We want God to show us every turn before we take a single step. Oh, Etapo. But often God only gives us one instruction at a time. He says, trust me here, and then follow me there. And with each step, we realize that the journey was never about the destination alone. It was about what He was doing in us along the way. The unfamiliar path forces you to let go of control. It shakes up your expectations. It challenges your assumptions. It reveals the places where you've been relying on your own strength. And in that place of vulnerability, God meets you with His strength. He becomes your guide, your sustainer, your provider. You discover dimensions of His faithfulness you would never have seen on the familiar road. I know it's uncomfortable. I know you want to see the whole picture. I know you're wondering why God is leading you this way, why He's allowing certain doors to close, why He's calling you into places that feel so foreign, so uncertain, so unfamiliar. But hear me, if God has led you here, it's not by accident. It's part of His design. The unfamiliar road is shaping you for the assignment you cannot yet see. It's preparing you for the battles you don't yet know you'll face. It's equipping you for the influence you will one day carry. We often ask God to make the way clear, but sometimes clarity only comes through motion. You have to move forward in obedience before the next step is revealed. You have to walk by faith, not by sight. You have to trust that even when the road is unfamiliar, the God who walks with you is faithful. Think about the children of Israel standing at the edge of the Red Sea. The path ahead was completely unfamiliar. A sea before them, an army behind them, no clear way forward. And yet God made a way where there was no way. He parted the sea. He led them through on dry ground. The unfamiliar path became the place of their greatest deliverance. Or consider Joshua and the people of Israel at the walls of Jericho. God's instructions must have seemed strange. March around the city once a day for 6 days and 7 times on the 7th day, and then shout. No swords drawn, no battle plan, just obedience on an unfamiliar path. But when they followed God's lead, the walls came down. Some of you are standing in front of a wall right now. You don't understand why God has brought you here, why the road has led to this place, why the next step is so unclear. But I want to remind you, the unfamiliar path is part of the design. God is doing something in you, through you, and around you that you cannot yet see. Don't be afraid to step forward. Don't shrink back into the familiar out of fear. Don't settle for what's safe when God is calling you into what's sacred. This is a season of trust. This is a season of surrender. This is a season of walking with God in a new way. And as you do, you will discover that He is not only the God of familiar places, He is the God of the unknown, the God of the unfamiliar, the God of the unfamiliar, the God who leads you into destiny one step at a time. So lift your head, steady your heart, take a deep breath, and keep walking. The unfamiliar path you're on is not a mistake. It's not a punishment. It's part of the divine design for your destiny. And the God who called you is faithful to lead you all the way home. We live in a world that tells us faster is better. We want everything now. We want our prayers answered immediately, our dreams fulfilled overnight, our problems solved in an instant. But if you walk with God long enough, you will discover that He does not operate on your timeline. His ways are not your ways. His thoughts are not your thoughts, and not your thoughts. And often, what feels to you like a delay is, in fact, divine preparation. What looks like a detour is actually the route He has chosen to develop you, to shape you, to strengthen you for the assignment ahead. It's easy to get discouraged in seasons of waiting. Look around and see others moving forward, crossing milestones, reaching goals, while you feel stuck in the same place. You start to wonder if you missed your chance, if you've been forgotten, if you've fallen behind. But I want to remind you today, just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't happen. God's delays are not His denials. His detours are not defeats. They are part of His perfect design to make you into the person He needs you to be for the destiny He has prepared. Look at Joseph. As a young man, Joseph had dreams of greatness. He saw visions of himself in a position of influence, of leadership. But no sooner had the dream been planted in his heart than everything in his life seemed to fall apart. His brothers betrayed him. He was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. Years passed. The dream must have seemed like a distant memory. The delays piled up. The detours grew longer. But none of it was wasted. God was using every trial, every setback, every closed door to develop Joseph's character, to sharpen his wisdom, to prepare him for the moment when he would stand before Pharaoh and step into his destiny. If Joseph had gone straight from the dream to the palace, he wouldn't have been ready. He would have been too immature, too untested, too fragile to handle the weight of leadership. It was the delays and detours that refined him, humbled him, and strengthened him. By the time his moment came, Joseph wasn't just a dreamer. He was a man equipped to save a nation. And what about David? Anointed as king, while still a shepherd boy, David spent years running from Saul, hiding in caves, wandering through wilderness places. Surely there were moments when he wondered why the promise was taking so long, why the path to the throne was so hard, why God allowed so many obstacles in the way. But those wilderness years were not wasted years. They were the training ground where David learned to trust God in danger, to lead men under pressure, to worship in the middle of adversity. When he finally took the throne, he was not just a boy with oil poured over his head. He was a man after God's own heart, forged by trial, ready to reign. Delays are not there to defeat you. They are there to develop you. God is far more interested in who you are becoming than in how fast you get there. He is shaping your heart, building your resilience, teaching you to depend on Him. He is working in the unseen places, preparing you behind the scenes for things you cannot yet see. And detours, oh, how we dislike them. We want the straight path. We want the shortcut. We want the quickest route from point A to point B. But sometimes God takes you the long way around because there are things you need to pick up on the journey. There are lessons you can only learn on the winding road. There are relationships you will form, experiences you will have, truths you will discover that will equip you for what's coming next. Think about the Israelites leaving Egypt. God did not take them on the shortest path to the promised land. In fact, He deliberately led them on a longer route because they weren't ready for war. They needed time to learn who they were. They needed time to learn who He was. They needed to go through the wilderness so they could be transformed from slaves into a people who could inherit. Oh, promise. Or look at Paul. Passionate, zealous, determined, but God allowed seasons of hiddenness, seasons of waiting, seasons where Paul was sidelined before he stepped fully into his apostolic mission. Why? Because the detours were part of the process. They deepened Paul's dependence on grace, sharpened his understanding of the gospel, strengthened his endurance for the trials ahead. And let's not forget Jesus Himself. For 30 years, He lived in obscurity, working as a carpenter, waiting for the time appointed by the Father. He didn't Rush ahead, Avind. Rush ahead. Push this again. He didn't force his moment. He waited, knowing that delay was part of the preparation. Even after his public ministry began, he often withdrew to quiet places, moving according to the Father's timetable, not the crowd's expectations. What does that mean for you? What? It means you don't have to panic when things take longer than you expected. You don't have to lose heart when doors close or paths shift. You don't have to believe the lie that says you're too late or that you've missed your window. God is not in a hurry. And if you will trust Him in the delays and detours, you will discover that He is doing more in you and through you than you realize. The waiting is never wasted. The delays are shaping your patience, your humility, your perseverance. The detours are broadening your perspective, deepening your faith, strengthening your character. And when the time comes, when the moment arrives, you will step into your destiny not as someone who barely made it, but as someone who has been prepared, refined, and made ready by the hand of God. So lift your head, take a deep breath, keep walking, even when the road curves in unexpected ways. Keep trusting even when the waiting feels long. Keep believing even when you can't yet see the outcome. The God who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it. The delays and detours are not your defeat. They are your development. And on the other side of the season is a testimony of God's faithfulness that will declare His glory to the world. Faith means trusting God and stepping forward, even when you don't see the whole map. Faith is one of those words we say often, but few of us truly understand the weight of what it means to live it out. We sing about faith, we preach about faith, we pray for faith, but the real test comes when we are called to walk by faith. Not when everything is clear, not when every step is visible, not when all the pieces line up neatly. No, real faith is required when God asks you to move, even though you can't see the whole map. When He tells you to trust Him, even though the details are hidden. When He calls you to step forward without handing you the full plan in advance. There's something in us that wants certainty. Do you nuts that wants certainty? We want to know where we're going, how we'll get there, how long it will take, and what will happen along the way. But God rarely operates that way. He doesn't give us the whole blueprint up front. He gives us just enough light for the next step. And then He says, trust me. Trust me. Trust me when the path is unclear. Trust me when you don't understand. Trust me when you can't see how this will work out. Trust me when you feel unqualified, unprepared, unsure. This is what faith looks like. Faith is not having all the answers. It's knowing the one who does. Faith is not seeing the whole staircase. It's taking the next step because you trust the one who holds the whole staircase in His hands. Faith is walking forward, even when your knees are shaking, even when doubt whispers in your ear, even when fear tries to hold you back. Think about Abraham. Think about Abraham. God told him to leave his home, his country, his father's household, and go to a land that God would show him. Abraham didn't get a map. He didn't get a detailed itinerary. He didn't even know the destination. God simply said, go, and Abraham went. He stepped forward in faith, believing that God would guide him along the way. And through that obedience, Abraham became the father of many nations, the father of faith. Consider Moses, standing at the edge of the Red Sea with the Egyptian army closing in behind him. There was no clear way forward. There was no bridge, no boat, no visible solution. But God told Moses to lift his staff and stretch out his hand over the sea. And when Moses obeyed, the waters parted. The way forward only opened after Moses stepped forward in faith. Or look at Peter, stepping out of the boat onto the water. As long as his eyes were on Jesus, he walked on the waves. But the moment he focused on the wind and the waves, he began to sink. Faith kept him walking where logic said he should fall. Faith kept him moving where fear said he should freeze. God is calling you to that kind of faith, the kind that moves without all the answers, the kind that trusts without full visibility, the kind that obeys even when the outcome is uncertain. You don't need to know everything before you say yes to God. You just need to trust that He knows everything and that He is leading you for your good. Faith is not a feeling, it's a decision. There will be days when you don't feel confident, when you don't feel strong, when you don't feel sure. But faith says, even though I don't feel it, I choose to trust God anyway. Faith says, even though I can't see it, I believe God is working behind the scenes. Faith says, even though I don't understand it, I will keep moving forward because I know God is faithful. Sometimes we wait for perfect clarity before we act. We say, God, show me everything, and then I'll move. But often God says, a move, and then I'll show you what you need to know. The clarity comes after the obedience. The provision comes after the step of faith. The breakthrough comes after the act of trust. Think of the Israelites crossing the Jordan River. The water didn't part until the priests put their feet in the river. It wasn't until they stepped into the water, while it was still flowing, God made a way. You don't need to wait for the waters to part before you move. Sometimes you have to step in while the current is still strong, trusting that God will meet you in the middle of your obedience. You might be standing today at the edge of a decision, a transition, a challenge, a calling. You might be waiting for every detail to fall into place, every question to be answered, every fear to disappear. But I want to remind you that faith does not wait for perfect conditions. Faith moves when God says move. Faith steps forward when God gives the word. Faith trusts that even when you don't know every detail, the God who called you is faithful to lead you. You won't always feel ready. You won't always feel brave. But you can trust that God will strengthen you as you go. He will equip you along the way. He will provide what you need for each step. He will open doors you didn't even know existed. But you have to step forward first. You have to move even when you don't see the whole map. Maybe you're afraid of making the wrong decision, of choosing the wrong path, of missing God's will. But hear this, God is big enough to redirect you if you start to go off course. He is not waiting for you to be perfect. He's waiting for you to be willing to trust Him, willing to obey Him. Willing to walk by faith, not by sight. Faith means living in the tension between the promise and the fulfillment, between the call and the completion, between the and not yet and the someday. It means holding on to God's word even when circumstances seem to contradict it. It means believing that He is who He says He is and that He will do what He said He would do, even when you can't yet see how. So today, take that step. Make the call. Send the application. Start the project. Begin the conversation. Walk forward even if it feels small, even if it feels scary, even if it feels uncertain. God does not require you to know the whole path. He only asks you to trust Him with the next step. And as you move in faith, you will discover that God is already ahead of you, preparing the way. He is already working on your behalf. He is already arranging the details. You are not walking alone. You are walking with the one who holds the map, the one who knows the way, the one who will lead you safely home. Keep trusting. Keep stepping. Keep believing. Faith means moving forward, not because you see everything clearly, but because you trust the one who does. And He will be faithful every step of the way. So here we stand, at the edge of all we've heard, all we've wrestled with, all we've been called to believe. We've seen that God knows when we need a new path. We've recognized that closed doors are not rejection, but divine redirection. We've understood that old paths no longer fit the person we're becoming, that the unfamiliar road is part of God's design for our destiny, that delays and detours are not defeat but development, and that true faith means trusting and stepping even when we cannot see the whole map. And now as we bring this word to a close, I want to leave you with this. You are not here by accident. You are not hearing this by coincidence. God has been speaking to your heart, stirring your spirit, calling you to rise, to move, to shift, to believe again. This is not the end of your story. This is not the dead end. This is the moment of divine invitation. God is saying, will you trust me? Will you let go of what's behind? Will you step forward on the path I prepared, even if you don't understand it yet? Yes, the road may feel unfamiliar. Yes, the waiting may feel long. Yes, the journey may stretch you beyond what you thought you could handle. But hear me, God is not finished with you. He has been shaping you, preparing you, refining you for something greater. The delays were not punishment. The detours were not wasted time. Though the closed doors were not signs of rejection. They were all part of His careful, loving plan to make you into the person who can carry the weight of the promise He has spoken over your life. So, don't shrink back. Don't settle. Don't sit down in the place where you were only meant to pass through. Lift your head. Square your shoulders. Take a breath and say, oh Lord, I trust you. Even without the whole map. Even when the way is unclear. Even when fear whispers. Even when doubt knocks. Even when nothing makes sense. You trust Him because He has never failed you. Step forward in faith. And be forward in faith. Walk boldly into the new path God is laying before you. He has gone ahead of you. He will walk beside you, and he will bring you safely into the destiny he designed just for you. The best is not behind you. The best is ahead. Keep moving. Keep trusting. Keep believing. Keep trusting. Keep believing. God knows you need a new path, and he is the one leading you into it.